If you spend any time on the internet, you know there are corners you should never visit. We aren't talking about the dark web here, but the things you should never Google or search for in your browser. Some stories are better left untouched, but it's like reverse psychology, daring us to peek behind the curtain and uncover what's hidden. So that's why I made this video, to guide you through the most creepy, unsettling, disturbing stuff you can find on Google. Just a simple click away. We'll dive into everything from bizarre diseases, grisly criminal cases, to doomsday cults, to info hazards. A topic so harmful that even exposure could start to mess with your head. Normally YouTubers would now give you a heads up about the things coming up, but this list would be a bit too long as this video features it all. Please take this as a warning as we go snorkeling down this iceberg chart. Small disclaimer here. First of all, my hands are a bit bound here, and I'm not allowed to show you any footage of the things we cover today, and that's the reason why I've used gameplay footage in some segments, simply because I don't have much footage to work with, and I hope you don't mind that. Secondly, this iceberg chart was made by another YouTuber called Monomania, who has plenty of great iceberg charts on his channel, so remember to check him out after this video. Now, Blue Waffle is something I remember popping up in the early days of YouTube, and it's probably one of the most well-known things you should never Google for. Sadly, we are not talking about blueberry flavored waffles, as this would be a good thing, but rather a disease. Blue Waffle surfaced on the internet according to Google Trends around November 2009. This trend started to gain traction after many people started randomly finding an image of a real blue waffle with a text underneath. Bet you can't find me on Google image search. If your curiosity got the best of you and you decided to look this up, you would end up looking at a woman's genitalia infected by some horrible disease. So blue waffle is a STD. This would only affect women and there is no cure for it. Things that would happen because of the infections are itching, burning and a strange weird odor. So how many girls are suffering from this Smurf syndrome? Well, none actually. This is just a hoax created by someone who wanted to spread misinformation. The picture that circulated online was disproven in 2011 by a Women's Health Foundation. They had Dr. Amy Whittaker examine this viral photo. She confirmed that the disease was fake and that the image was photoshopped, or perhaps it was a result of some strange type of mutilation. Nowadays it's a bit harder to stumble upon such images, as Google has a filter turned on by default so you don't scar yourself for life, like many young people did in the pre-2010s. Where there is a problem, there is a solution, and where there is a man, there is a jar. Our story leads us back to a snowy and cold December of 2008, where a video was posted to the site called e-f. This video was produced by a loving family Russian man called Alex. He apparently woke up one day with the idea to shock a whole generation. Well, that's not what he actually said. He said in an interview this should supposedly be funny. For the video, he decided to undress, spread his butt and sit on a jar. This is definitely gross, but what made it 10 times more gross was the fact that the jar broke inside of him. And you will be left with a video where Alex tries to pull out broken glass pieces out of his sewer hole, which is a quite spectacular sight to behold if you decide to look up this video. But why would you do that? But if you decided to go this rabbit hole, there is also one more funny video of him called One Man One Screwdriver, which is not so popular as the jar video. Just to state, this video was not fake and the guy didn't receive any serious injuries or consequences because of this hilarious act. Plus Alex took it like a man and he didn't even go to a hospital. These are the things we could find out through an interview between Alex and the creator of the site Bestgore. I bet that sitting down was quite interesting, but that comes with the territory, I guess.
A girl was taking a bath when an asteroid hit Earth, landing right next to her, and the radiation caused her and the tub to fuse together and gave her superpowers. Don't believe me? Look up Tub Girl and see if you're...
This image goes way back. It originated on one of the most popular shock sites out there, rotten.com. P.S. If you're interested into the history of morality of watching gore content, I have a special video for you can watch later. But the picture surfaced around the year 2000, and on February 15, 2002, the domain tubgirl.com was registered, and there was a whole page dedicated to this picture. Now, Tubgirl does sound like something erotic, and it is to some degree. It is depicting an innocent girl lying naked in a bathtub with her legs placed behind her head. And she was wearing something that appears like a Wolverine mask on her head, while a fountain of something that can be described as orange liquid shoots out from her sewer hole and falls back onto her face, like a fountain if you can imagine that. Now with this in mind, the site Kotaku, yes, the gaming review site, placed this image on the front page of the gaming news. Later it was discovered as a part of a prank orchestrated by the Gizmodo editor Brian Lamb. I mean, what the fuck. Obviously the same day Kotaku posted an apology to the readers who have seen this explicit image. But there is something important to know about the 2000s. People just love to prank their friends by sharing photos like Tub Girl, Blue Waffle, or videos like 2 Girls 1 Cup. Those were truly wild times. Because of this would spark a trend of reaction videos where people were completely disgusted by these images, and this form of art was reintroduced to the younger generations via TikTok, and I purposely called it art, as the creator of this image has this to say. It's about womanhood, how a woman is the center of life, how she neuroses, eats, and of course the valuable things that come from her body. The gush of diarrhea is symbolic. It is a symbol of joy and happiness. It is about life and birth. In that one moment of pure beauty we see the circle of life from anus to mouth, the perfection of yin and yang. Do with this information what you want. I just wanna go to the next entry. When life gives you lemons, have a lemon party. What does this even mean? Well, the entry is considering a party, a threesome, and lemons are grandpas. Wait, this can't be right. People tell their friends to just type lemon party only to find a picture of 3 naked elderly men having sex while Jimmy Soul's 1963 song If You Wanna Be Happy is played in the background. Well, there you have it. This is a lemon party, just 3 old guys lying naked in a bed and having their time of their life. So this was like peak humor in 2002, where you would send your bro this picture to let him know he was gay. One thing that is a bit different compared to the other entries on this list is that this prank was not only shared online but also in real life by people putting up posters around towns in Canada with the phrase "Politics left you bitter" and a link to lemonparty.org. And I don't wanna know how many people thought of this to be a political campaign and started to Google this. But the funny story is this was actually based on a political party that was registered on January 8, 1987. The party was headed by Pope Terence I, whose existence isn't confirmed, and in a nutshell they wanted to focus Canada's economy on lemons, despite its cold climate. But they also had a way how to solve this problem. Simply by stirring up the global warming, so they could grow lemons. I think I spread this entry a bit too wide, so let's go to the next entry.
Having a lemon party?
Oh, a good old-fashioned lemon party. I call first squeeze.
Sir, we are way past your bedtime.
Oh, so where were we? By spreading? Good, then let's continue through this rabbit hole. I meant down this rabbit hole. This sounds even worse. Go.cx was a registered domain in 1999, and it was actually a way to share a prank with people online. Its front page featured a picture simply entitled hello.jpg. The picture would be of a hunched over naked man who used both of his hands to stretch open his butt and to expose his fleshy insides. This was like a disturbing alternative to Rickrolling before Rickrolling was even a thing. And I'm not kidding you, because first traces of this photo go back to 1997. The role model was Kirk Johnson, who was for a fact a pornographic model who participated in extreme penetration and b***ing. I didn't know this was even a thing. But this photo was actually stolen from him. A group of hackers known as the Hick Crew found this image and decided to spam it in a Christian chat room as entertainment. And I feel so horrible for them, as they're just among us to spread the word of God, not to look at other people spreading their... Yeah. In 1999, a member of the Hick Crew, using the handle Merlin, established the goatsa.cx website to host the image to facilitate its spread online. After his site was shut down due to the complaints of the people who were surprised by the content because there weren't any proper warnings, it was too late and Kirk spread himself throughout the whole internet, for better or worse. Also, at first the internet didn't know who is the owner of this bot, so after extensive research in a group about gay men, they managed to find Kirk, and I kid you not, they found him by analyzing the pattern of his moles. And that's why you should never underestimate the power of the internet.
Full finger in the left, full finger in the right, and the biggest stretch that you have ever seen.
This entry is interesting. It's about how you should never Google anything about a movie or a show you're currently watching, because there is a good possibility you will see some spoilers you don't wanna see. This is quite self-explanatory and I don't need to explain it any further, but I wanna add that one of my good friends, who actually made a few songs that I use for my outros, where he spoiled Sons of Anarchy to our whole group by posting a gif of Jax in the last episode. And if you watch the show, you can probably guess which scene I'm talking about. So thank you for watching and I hate you. Infants with this condition are born prematurely with very hard, thick skin covering most of their bodies. The skin would form large diamond-shaped plates that are separated by deep cracks. They are in quite of pain while their skin starts to peel off, and they do normally feel better if they manage to heal, especially when the first phase of peeling is done. This is quite a rare and deadly disease, as many of the babies don't survive more than a week or two. There are some cases where people would survive and grow a bit older, but they are often under heavy medical treatment. One of 300,000 babies happens to be affected by this disease. Despite all the advances we have in the medical field, many infants still die from their condition. I know what you're thinking now. This entry is probably about two girls trying to sit on a cup, and you're completely wrong here, but I will share the cup story nevertheless. You know about that one guy who loves to overshare, often telling you more information than you ask for. He typically would be the guy who would casually bring up something obscure as Brazilian underground fetish trailer for hungry bitches. Too extreme to print. What a title. The video in question starts quite normally, so to say, but then shit hits the fan fairly quickly. And I mean literally. The two girls would use the cup to pick up the chocolate fudge so they could lick it like ice cream. And if you're vomiting now, good, as that's the same thing the girls started to do, but just in each other's mouths. Huh? People speculated this is even fake when this was posted online. This sparked even a debate where people didn't believe that girls could produce so much fudge that even the US government formed the Obscenity Prosecution Task Force to deal with such content. But this was enough for this entry, and let's move to something more thought-provoking.
Oh, let's get some Brazilian fart porn in there.
Rocco's basilisk is quite an interesting topic to have on this list. It's because this is considered an info hazard, and to our luck it's not the only one we will cover today. Info hazards are, if you didn't know, information which, if you only knew they existed, can be harmful to you as they can cause anxiety and stress. simply to say the information is messing with your mind. This is a topic I wanted to cover, and I even scripted a whole video about this, but never finished the video, as I was afraid you guys wouldn't like it. So what is the Rocco's basilisk and why it is so unsettling? This is a theory that imagines a future where a super intelligent AI exists, and its main goal is to ensure its own creation and dominance. But there is obviously a catch here. This AI might decide to punish anyone in the past who didn't actively work to bring it into existence. Now, how could this AI punish you in the first place? Well, he could hook you up for eternity and put you in a state of endless suffering, thinking something like Dante's Inferno, but you were only walking through hell on repeat. The idea is that the fear of the punishment would be enough to motivate people to help create this AI and ensuring its survival. But where it gets a bit messier is just knowing about the basilisk puts you on the radar because awareness makes you accountable. So if you think about it and do nothing, you could be targeted. It's a trap either way. If you try to stop it, you're in danger, and if you don't try to help it, you're still in danger. It's philosophical horror at its finest. This topic is explored in a game that I bought in a bundle and found the title of the game so horrifying because the game is named I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, where this topic was used as the main plot of the game. By the way, a cognito or info hazard iceberg does sound like an awesome idea. Am I right? Deglowing is rather a short entry. It's an injury where if your limbs, fingers, toes or chunk of flesh would be torn apart, it would be considered as deglowing. It's like you would take off a glove, that's why the name deglowing. This is something that would often happen in factories or in types of work where machines come into play, where the machine would grab a finger, jacket or even hair and start to pull a limb or chunks of your flesh. If you're working in such field, please be careful and pay attention to your surroundings, as things like this could happen quite easily.
Oh dang, almost forgot my safety glasses.
For example, I was working with a guy who wanted to change a disc on an angle grinder, and somehow he turned the thing on, and just like that, in a second his pinky was gone. Not a pleasant sight to have, especially with all that blood splashing around us. This was skipped in the video from Mono, and I don't know why. Perhaps the topic was a bit too extreme, I don't know, but I won't skip it even if it's completely disgusting and insane. Now, a man was rushed into a hospital by his friend as he was bleeding. Before you know it, the friend was gone and the doctors were left with a patient who was bleeding from his back. Sadly, it was too late. The cause of death was perforated colon, or simply to say his insides were ripped apart. The Mr. Hand case happened in 2005 involving a guy named Pinyan, an engineer who worked for Boeing and was a resident in Gig Harbor, Washington, a place in the US where you could freely engage in making love with animals, if you catch my drift here. And there were a special farm who would facilitate people who enjoy such things. It was described by the people who visited the farm like they were family reunions with various people around the globe coming there to have fun. The same case was with Mr. Hands. He and an unknown man made many of these acts while making also videos. One of the most popular videos they made was called Deep Trust. So you know where I'm heading with this. The guy who was rushed to the hospital was the guy who was the star in Deep Trust. Besides the other star of the show, a horse nicknamed Big Dick. And the problem was that the horse was a bit more that Mr. Hands could handle. After they finished with the act, Mr. Hands was bleeding from his back, and as you can figure out, he couldn't go back to his family as they would surely ask questions. So he simply stayed hidden for a while, but it was clear that something was horribly wrong. And it was. At the time he was brought to the hospital, it was simply too late for him. Not only this entry has a bad ending, but I don't wanna know how his family felt when they realized what happened. Especially as prior to his death, Mr. Hands wanted to build a farm and raise horses.
Do you regret what you did? Nah. Would you do it again? Sure, why not?
Hello, I come with a message from the future. I have seen terrible things that no one should see.
r/5050 is a subreddit for gamblers who love to chase the thrill of seeing something disturbing. Sort of. It's all up to you. It's a subreddit where you would click on blurred images and there is a 50% chance you would see something disturbing, from infections, mutilations, or people in car accidents. This subreddit is still very much active, with users posting on a daily basis, so go on and try your luck if you dare, but don't run back to me after you have seen something disturbing. Steven John, better known by his alias Blippi, is an American children's entertainer on YouTube. Wait, this guy has 22 million subscribers? Oh really? That's quite interesting.
I love horses.
I'm not sure if the parents know about Blippi's last nickname, who was Steezy Grossman. You wanna know why? So do you remember Harlem Shake? If you were around the 2010s on YouTube, there is a good chance you saw this, where people would dance online to this song by making silly things when the beat drops. Blippi Grossman decided to also make a Harlem Shake video in 2013. It starts with him and his body being in a bathroom, and after the beat drops, Blippi could be seen standing on a toilet, bent over and launching some projectiles on his body who was under him. Disgusting to say at least. After Grossman didn't succeed, Blippi somehow decided to tap into the lucrative business of producing kids videos on YouTube.
Hey, it's me, Blippi, and today we're at Party Jungle.
It didn't take long for people to find out about this Harlem Shake video. Even if many were disgusted by it, they didn't seem to care. Also, there is a part of Blippi we need to add where parents would say that Blippi is trying to bake his brain to the kids' minds, as he is also CEO expert on the side, so he knows how branding works, but that's a rabbit hole for another day I think, as we need to go to layer 3. Anyone a bit familiar with Christianity knows that Judas was the guy who betrayed Jesus. Sometimes the name is even used for people who love to snitch. Now let's be honest, who loves people who snitch?
Eat this.
Well, in the Middle Ages, they made a specific device even for them, called the Judas chair. I mean, the design and the use of the device were horrifying. It's a chair with a metal or wooden pyramid on top of it, but you're certainly curious how it works. Well, first of all, the victim would be stripped down naked and then slowly lowered onto the pinpointed part of the pyramid, which would be inserted into the you know what? And when the victim's weight wasn't enough, they would tie the victim with ropes and try to forcefully push him down. This is a painful and long method to somebody, but this was meant as a physical and psychological torture at once. This is a way how to make the last moments of the victim quite miserable, but it was also boring to others. As you can guess, there aren't any pictures of this because Middle Ages, but there are illustrations of it and the chair doesn't look too comfy. I didn't expect this at all, but I had a gut feeling about what this entry is about. Now, chainsaw is a tool you would usually use around the house for cutting wood, but the origin of this tool started in the medical field. In the late 18th century, two Scottish doctors developed a prototype of a chainsaw used for childbirth. You heard me right. This tool was designed to assist with medical procedure called, seen on the screen, which involved cutting through a woman's pelvic bone to widen the birth canal during obstructed labor. At the time, this was considered as a life-saving procedure, when natural delivery was impossible. Obviously, the chainsaw was smaller and it was powered by a hand crank, so it wasn't a gasoline-fueled one. Still, the thought of somebody coming near you with this thing to open you up seems a bit surreal, but for someone who is not in the medical field, there are plenty of things that seem surreal to me. But it's actually crazy how a medical tool later evolved into a household item. The game is a thought experiment whose origins date back to 1976. with a similar experiment. So let me explain the rules about the game. So first of all, if you think about the game, you lose. That's it. And when you lose, you're supposed to say, I lost the game out loud. It's a never-ending cycle of losing. The only way to win is to never think about it. The catch about the game is the more you try to not think about the game, the more it pops into your head. It's like a sneaky little trap your brain sets for itself. So yes, this again is considered as an info hazard. Nobody's entirely sure where it came from, but some say it started as a social experiment, or maybe it was just a joke on the internet. At this point, it's basically a meme. It's funny how something so simple can mess with your mind, but again, it's just funny, I guess. And also, if you're hearing this, you lost the game, so sorry about that. Now you need to leave a comment by saying you lost the game. Or heck, you can even leave a like, I won't mind. And as we are already talking about those things, please, the new viewers among you, consider subscribing to the channel to join the rank of the deep divers and enjoy more videos like this. Thank you. Fournier gangrene is a term you don't wanna Google. If you didn't know about regular gangrene, it's where your tissue dies off because of lack of blood or because of bacterial infection. Basically, your flesh is dying and rotting apart. This is something that many people don't even want to think about it, let alone look at it. Now, if this isn't enough, this type is centered around your private area. It's rare and life-threatening, and if this starts to happen, go immediately to the hospital and seek some help. However, googling this term won't do you any good. Is exactly what you think it is. This is a therapy in which maggots are placed in open wounds so they can cure you. I know many people who can't see blood, and some people even don't love bugs. So here you have it. 2 in 1, and the images you can find are quite disgusting. But as of 2004, this is officially used as a therapy for people and animals. But this method dates way back to the era of Maya, Native Americans and Aborigines. So this isn't something new, but the problem was that many doctors considered this to be a bit distasteful. But also many people would not refuse this therapy if it's suggested to them just to get cured, I guess. Maggots in this case are used because they can feed on the bacteria that can cause the infection, and they are actually helping you, but this doesn't make it any less disgusting. I love how Mono included an actual crime case in this, as we can be disturbed solely by the info we read or hear, but this is a case you should not look up because I will tell you the grisly details. This case is about Tim McLean, a simple 22-year-old making his way home after working at a carnival. He was on Greyhound bus in Canada just like anyone else, trying to get from one place to another. Now Tim was sitting near the back of the bus, minding his own business.
He didn't say anything to the victim. The victim was just sleeping with his headphones on. He was leaning against the window, sleeping, you know, doing his own little thing. He wasn't bothering the guy. When
another passenger, Vince Lee, suddenly turned on him. Out of nowhere, Lee pulled out a knife and started to stab Tim repeatedly in the neck and chest area.
He just kept going at the guy. It was like it was a robot though. The guy had, you know, he wasn't screaming at the guy or he wasn't in a rage. It was just very calmly the guy. The other guy was screaming bloody murder.
The passengers started to scream, the bus stopped and everybody got out. This wasn't the end of this case, as the people would see that Lee even decapitated Tim, before Lee would once again return to Tim, and now he started to hacking other parts of his body and he eventually started to consume some of Tim's flesh. Witnesses stated that this horror went on for hours. Lee would even wave his head and limbs to show them off to the passengers like it was a theatrical show.
And it's starting to get dark and the cops are there, and he comes up and he picks the head up and he's waving it in the window. I just smoked a cigarette with this man earlier, right? The hit, and he's shaking it back and forth at the window, and it's really intense, right? It's sickening. And
when the police arrived, it was a bloody sight to see, and after they arrested Lee, they found Tim's ear, nose and tongue in Lee's pockets. The victim's eye and parts of his heart were never recovered, and despite all the denial, the judge presumed that Lee actually ate them. Later was found out that Lee has untreated schizophrenia, and he claimed that he heard voices that told him that Tim was a threat, even though Tim didn't do anything to provoke him.
Barely 7 months after he killed Timothy McLean, a judge ruled that he was not criminally responsible.
The court later declared Ali as not to be criminally responsible due to his mental illness, and he was sent to a psychiatric facility instead of a prison.
Mr. Lee is a schizophrenic. Mr. Lee had a severe mental disease.
Over the years, Lee received treatment and was eventually released under supervision.
And it took a long time to really want to get up every day.
The creator of the chart wanted to add one spider to the mix, and he definitely included a very interesting type. The Chinese hourglass spider is a type of a trapdoor spider. It has a very distinct plate or disc on its abdomen, which according to some people resembles an ancient coin or a seal. Because its plate resembles a coin, it is commonly referred to as a money trapdoor spider in China. But people who hate spiders will probably think this is the most horrific thing they have seen in quite a while. It's also no wonder that this little fellow is poisonous, but it isn't so dangerous to humans. But I need to say that the patterns are quite odd, but that's nature. Finally, a video you can enjoy on YouTube. You have now seen a few of those one-man videos, and this one is about a man and 2 spoons. This video is quite short and it depicts a man showing off a spoon into his eye, and then he wipes out another spoon, and it looks like he's trying to pull out his eyes with those 2 spoons. Some speculate this is very much real, as you can see the eyes focusing, but I don't wanna be the judge here. But it's quite interesting how YouTube works, as I need to censor everything in my videos, appeal multiple times to not get limited visibility and limited ads, and just one click away is a guy who is trying to gouge out his eyes with a spoon. Amazing, am I right? When I first started to research this topic, I simply pushed it aside because I didn't want to cover it. Many of you probably know the reason why, but this all changed when I found the reason why this entry is on the list. The entry is about a girl called Nikki Katoris, who died at the age of 18 in Lake Forest, California, after she lost control of her father's Porsche, colliding with a tool booth around 100 miles or 160 kilometers per hour. As it was later found out, she wasn't allowed to use the Porsche, but she did it anyways. And it was even later found out that she was under the influence of cocaine, according to the wiki at least. Despite all of this, it's still horrible that this happened. When the California Highway Patrol arrived at the crash site, they would took various photographs of the scene. The officer did this as a part of a standard fatal traffic collision procedure. The problem was that these photographs were forwarded to colleagues and were later leaked on the internet. But this didn't stop here, sadly, because some fucking idiots decided to spam the family with her photos. One of the emails that was sent to her dad even had the captioning with "Woohoo daddy, hey daddy, I am still alive." Truly disgusting behavior, but I hope the family did find their peace, as there is nothing else to say here. To sum up this entry, I feel so happy and grateful that so many good-hearted people are starting to join this channel, as I received many comments that made me tear up more than once. Again, be respectful and kind. Very small gestures can be a lot to someone. Showing kindness to a complete stranger is a true reflection of your character.
I'm gonna miss running around campus with the camera.
Coffin bird doesn't sound remotely interesting because it's rather morbid. This refers to a medical phenomenon when a deceased pregnant woman would give birth to a baby. This would only happen when the body starts to decomposition and gases started to build up in the body, which would eventually push out the baby, mimicking childbirth. That's why the name coffin bird, as this only happens long after both of them are dead. Online there are skeletons discovered from the Middle Ages showing us this phenomenon. Perhaps the picture of the skeletons isn't something too disturbing to you, but consider the fact it was a mother and a child, this makes it quite disturbing. This is a practice you don't see in the West, and there is a good reason for it. Breast ironing is still done today and is also known as breast flattening, and it's a well documented thing that happened mostly in Africa. This is done by using hard or heated objects that would be pushed and pressed against young girls' breasts from stop developing. This is done because some in the regions of Africa there are so many cases of SA, and usually mothers and grandmothers would do this as an act of kindness so that the girls appear less attractive. And I don't need to add that STDs are also a huge problem in the region. I also read about it, and I don't know if it's true, but in Cameroon, boys and men would consider a girl to be ready for intercourse as soon as the breast started to grow a little bit, which is quite wild, but I don't need to say that this procedure is quite harmful and it can lead even to cancer. Let's talk about something a bit unsettling. Mango worms. These type of blowflies are common in East and Central Africa, and they're allowed to target large mammals, including humans. These flies would often try to lay their eggs on exposed skin, but also clothing or soil. And when their eggs hatch, the worms crawling out are capable of penetrating your skin. This would lead to painful, boil-like lumps, and if untreated can cause serious infections. Pets, especially dogs, often fall victim to them, and the treatment involves manually removing the worms from the wounds, which is also quite unpleasant as it sounds. And with that out of the way, we can move to layer 5. Once again, we are looking at a form of gangrenous infection, but this time around the mouth and face area. This type is particularly prevalent among children in Africa. It's quite aggressive but also fatal. It starts around the mouth before it starts to spread to the teeth, jawbone, cheeks, tongue, lips, and even the nose. And if you're looking at the pictures, you can really see how the flesh is falling apart. This condition is often life-threatening if not treated appropriately on time, and that's why it's also well documented online if you decide to research it. Unit 731 is such a morbid and obscure rabbit hole to dive in. This is a unit specialized in biological and chemical warfare, research and development for the Imperial Japanese Army. And for the best result and research purposes, of course they did it on humans. The experiments they done there were so gruesome that it's hard to believe that humans are capable of such acts. Some of the things they did was, for example, trying new ammunition to see how it works on people, putting a few people in a row to shoot them just to see the penetration ability, or detonating to see the impact of the radius. Also, if you didn't know, the Japanese love their swords and knives, which were also put to test. But I think that the second group was even in a worse place, because they were used as guinea pigs. They were infected with all various diseases you will find around the world, and they would later try to see how the disease is spreading, and they would usually cut them up just to see what the disease is doing to their insides. But this is like just a tip of the iceberg. By the way, I don't wanna promote too much stuff here, but there is a 20-minute video on my channel about all the greasy details if you want to dive a bit deeper into this topic. Because trust me, this is truly a disturbing rabbit hole. 1. This is about a doomsday cult from Canada, founded in 1977 by a monster named whose beliefs were based on the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The leader of this group managed to gather and isolate a group of people, which were all then moved to his isolated property. As you can expect, the things that went on this farm were more than ominous. Rock would not only induce physical harm to the people, but he also fathered 26 children with the cult members. However, people believed in his views, as he was described by many as a charismatic leader. But because of his troubled past perhaps, he started to act more extreme by the year. Some of the things he has done were performing circumcisions on the children and adults in the group. But this is on the tip of the iceberg, because he decided to do some more amateur surgeries, like when he decided to operate a girl without anesthesia, where he first just shoved up a plastic bag in her, yeah, and he decided to cut her open with a knife just to pull out his intestines with bare hands. The girl obviously died the next day, but the madness didn't stop there, as he ordered his followers to open her skull so he can cut onto her brain, because she would then be resurrected. Because of this and many more gruesome stuff that happened on that farm, it is easily seen why is this on the list. Rock was later arrested under murder charges and received a life sentence, but he was murdered in 2011. People remember him as one of the most notorious people of the 1980s in Canada. This refers to a Tumblr user called Coldness in My Heart, who posted quite unsettling posts around the internet. If you try to search up her name on YouTube, you don't get one, but rather two warnings about the content you're searching for. She posted about her troubles in life and the mental crisis she had. Now the problem was that she didn't stop there. There is almost a whole gallery of the things she did to herself. She often posted images of self-harm with wounds so deep and so wide that people wondered how can somebody survive this. Some speculated that she has some type of disorder where the blood starts to clotting more than usual, or that she has some medical knowledge, but I don't feel like sharing more details here than this, because there is really a good chance that this video would get limited visibility because of this. So I can tell you that she had over 3 different accounts before they were all deleted on Tumblr because she violated the policy, but she would also post to forum sites. I also need to state that she didn't promote this, but only wanted to document her acts, and sadly the traces of this girl completely disappeared, and many people think that she's actually dead. And there are still archives online that feature her images. Is about the injury that yet again we don't have any pictures or videos, but let's explore this tragic story together. This is the case of the poor 17-year-old Japanese high school student called Junko Furuta, also known in Japan as the Cretan-cased high school girl case. You know that I'm forced to keep some entries a bit compact here because of the depth, but I still will provide you with enough details about the case. Skipping ahead to the day where Junko rejected a Yakuza wannabe. A few days later, driven by the sting of rejection and his bruised pride, he and his fellows abducted her. First he started to SA her, before the whole group started to do the same thing. Because they had a fear she would call the cops, they didn't want to release her like the last victim and move her to the home of one of the guys. This torture would continue for the next 42 days. They even bragged about it, how they have a girl locked up who is doing everything they want. And later it was proven that over 100 people visited her and did their way. This would even include girls who watched her, and some of them were actually mocking her. But this would eventually evolve into more extreme things as they started to getting bored with her. They would occasionally left her on the balcony without any clothes, or they were locking her up in the freezer. They would set her on fire or even pour hot candle wax into her eyes. This would even include putting firecrackers into her. Such cases are a stark reminder that we do live amongst monsters, and when they are given power, their actions often know no bounds. The family of the boy was aware of this happening, but they were too afraid of him to intervene. They were also paralyzed by the fear of the shame and damage it could bring to their reputation if this came out, after the poor girl passed away from all the severe things they did to her. The boys were in complete shock and freaked out, as they could get a death sentence because of this. Junko at the end was beaten and mutilated so much to a degree that she wasn't recognizable anymore. The boys would then quickly find a way how to dispose her body and put Junko in a huge oil barrel filled with concrete, with a part of her head still visible for whatever reason, and they then decide to dispose of her body. Few days later, the Yakuza wannabe was questioned by the police about another case of SA. In that panic, he mixed up this story with Junko's, assuming his friends have already confessed, but in reality they didn't say the word, and he was arrested. While examining the body, they would find items still stuck in her, and they would find out she was pregnant. She was mutilated to a point that she couldn't bear a child. Because of this, they were all arrested. The problem was that they were still in high school and very young, and they only received a quite small sentence, with 20, 8 and 2 times 5 years in prison. These guys are currently out and walking freely on the earth. Because of this, some consider they did have Yakuza ties. But this case is truly a long and deep rabbit hole, and I only provided you with some details. But I still would advise you to not look anything about this, as it's just said at the end. Also, the girl's mother lost it completely after the police told her what the boys done to her, and she had a mental breakdown. I mean, of course she did, but a very weird thing is that one of the boys' mother destroyed the grave of this innocent girl, screaming how she ruined the life of her boy because he is now sent to prison. Cyclopia is once again a rare disorder that affects newborns. Cyclopia evolved from the word cyclops, and just like in that case, the babies are born with one eye in the middle or two merged eyes in the front of the face. This is often followed by heavy brain malfunctions, and the prognosis are not so good. This can be diagnosed during the pregnancy, so it can be dealt with in time, and as you can guess, there are some medical records here if you want to see the photos, but I think the illustration should be more than enough. The creator of this chart stated that this layer is a bit more vague than the others, but let me assure you, it is just as terrifying, if not more so. It delves into the unsettling territory of cognitive and informational hazards, so enjoy the last layer. Your name is more than an interesting topic I didn't expect to see on the list. Now this entry revolves around why you should not Google your name. As I said, info hazards can mess with your head, and just like in this case, it's the same thing. If you decide to Google your full name, there is a chance you will find simple things like social media profiles, which aren't as bad if you decide to lock them up so strangers can't look into your life, but there is also a chance you would start to see sites or posts you don't want to see, where people would slander your name on sites like Reddit or other sites.
What's your name? Tony! Fuck you, Tony!
Or even worse, you will discover that somebody is using your photos to pose as you. This could be even harmful to your reputation, especially if for whatever reason your phone number and address are floating around the internet. If you're anything like me, someone who delved into the weird and obscure corners of the internet, you already know what the internet is capable of, even without your information just lying around. So yeah, I completely understand why is this on the list. This caught me completely off guard, to be honest. This refers to quite a phenomenon about famous females. So if you have a crush on any famous female out there, there is a good chance there are adult videos or photo out there. This is a rule made by 4chan, and there is also a 4chan series still going on my channel. But 4chan made a list called the rules of the internet, and one of those rules is rule 34. If it exists, there is porn of it.
Dad? Randy!
Oh, there was a ghost! There's ectoplasm!
Now you would probably argue that not every female has adult material floating around, and you are completely true. But whether you like it or not, there are drawings, and now even with the help of AI, even deepfakes. Videos with the faces of famous individuals plastered onto explicit content. This kind of material is more and more prominent online, and deepfakes are quite a deep topic to dive in. No pun intended this time. This is borderline creepy. Can you imagine that somebody is creating a video with your face, in situations you perhaps never thought to be in? this topic is quite overwhelming as it dives into manipulation, exploitation, and just how we open the Pandora's box while figuring AI out. A scary future is ahead of us.
Do you intend to destroy yourselves?
Just to show you how primitive humans are, Telosian.
We had not believed this possible.
Imagine somebody you know, someone close to you, has a serious illness. Something like this could be downright depressing, but what's even worse is you trying to look up how long this person will be still around. Googling the survival rates of an illness of somebody you know is quite morbid, as it puts you in a weird and anxious place. And I don't know why would you do that, but even if information on Google can be accurate, there are many more factors to consider here. And you should always listen what the doctor tells you. This is quite interesting in its way. Now, every one of us loves our privacy and usually thinks that you Google should stay private, but they are often not. If you decide to Google specific phrases or terms, there is a good chance or possibility that you will be put on a watch list if you decide to Google the wrong things.
It's alright, nothing wrong with it. Freeze! You're busted, buddy. I'm a cat. Oh.
Think it like a warning signal that would pop up above your head, and there is an agency that will closely examine the things you do online, because the governments don't know if you Google this because of curiosity or a real intent you have behind it. So it's quite weird to know that our every Google search is watched over by someone.
FBI, open up!
This is like the part 2 to the last entry, and it's about the things you look up online, because there is a chance that the ad will pop up after you start searching for something. People who love to confirm everything while visiting a page without knowing what they just agreed with can end up with getting personalized ads. This could lead to a bit of paranoia if you don't know about this, but the speculation that our phones are listening to us is already debunked many times. Trying to search for something or just talk about a certain things, there is a good chance you will see ads just about that popping out in no time. Unless you go that extra mile of privacy where you're trying to hide everything. But you also saw how many apps are willing to sell your data. Data is a currency nowadays, and how the big tech firms are using it to make personalized ads that are trying to manipulate us to do or buy certain things is just more than scary. This is something actually quite funny, and I wanna end this video with a happy tone. So this entry is about how you should never Google your symptoms. There are countless memes made about this. If you decide to look up the cause of your headache, you will probably discover that you're already dead. I'm joking here obviously, but sometimes looking up your illness online will lead you to a rabbit hole you don't wanna go. So go seek help if you need it and don't rely on the internet so much. So this was the Things You Should Never Look Up Iceberg by Monomania. Again, check out his channel. And tell me about all the things you find unsettling, as everybody is a bit different. And I'm curious about the topics you can handle. And if you have a suggestion for the next iceberg chart, leave a comment. Because this video is coming out before Christmas, I wish you a happy Christmas and holidays in general. Remember to call or visit your family and friends, because they are truly what matters in life. At the time this video will be released, I will be already with my family and trying to enjoy the holidays as much as we can. As this is going to be the saddest Christmas ever, there is nothing much we can do besides being there for each other, I guess. Once again, thank you so much for watching, thank you for everything, I love you so much, and until the next deep dive, stay curious.